Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of the World Report with me, Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. Crucial talks between US and Russian officials on a possible peace deal in Ukraine are taking place currently in Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, there were separate talks between Ukraine and the US in Saudi, which Ukraine's defense minister called productive and focused. Meanwhile, US and Ukrainian officials resumed ceasefire negotiations on Sunday as a top US envoy voiced optimism for a potential breakthrough. A day before ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine in Saudi Arabia, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said he believed Russian President Vladimir Putin wants peace. Now, speaking to Fox News Sunday, Witkoff said he did not believe fears that Putin was in fact after more territory in Eastern Europe. Witkoff said, "I just don't see that he wants to take all of Europe. This is a much different situation, in fact, than it was in World War I and World War II. There was no NATO." Meanwhile, Ukraine and Russia are expected to hold indirect US-mediated talks on Monday, which are actually ongoing, to in fact discuss a pause in long-range attacks targeting energy facilities and civilian infrastructure. An attack on Kiev ahead of ceasefire negotiations, in fact, in Saudi Arabia. According to reports, 3 people, including a 5-year-old child, were killed and 10 others were injured in Russia's latest drone attack. Moscow, in fact, launched 147 drones across Ukraine. Now, this is according to the Ukrainian Air Force. Meanwhile, Kiev's air defenses shot down 97 and 25 other drones did not reach their targets due to Ukrainian countermeasures. Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney has moved to dissolve Parliament and trigger a snap election, in fact, on the 28th of April. The widely anticipated decision kicks off an election race less than 2 weeks after Carney took up his post, succeeding Justin Trudeau at a time of soaring tensions, in fact, with the US. Listen in to what Mark Carney, in fact, had to say.
There is so much more to do to secure Canada, to invest in Canada, to build Canada, to unite Canada. That's why I'm asking for a strong, positive mandate from my fellow Canadians. I've just requested that the Governor-General dissolve Parliament and call an election for April 28th. And she has agreed. I'm asking Canadians for a strong, positive mandate to deal with President Trump and to build a new Canadian economy that works for everyone. Because I know we need change. Big change. Positive change. You see, my generation was fortunate. For us, there were more opportunities and life was more affordable. You had to work hard, but you could get ahead. That was the bargain. But for the generations that have followed, they're working just as hard or even harder than we did. But they're struggling to pay the rent, to put groceries on the table, and to save for their kids' education.
More than 50,000 Palestinians, in fact, have now been killed in the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, the territory's health ministry has said. This as new Israeli airstrikes killed at least 26 Palestinians overnight, including a Hamas political leader and several women and children, as claimed by Gaza's health ministry. And the true toll could be much higher, in fact, with many thousands believed to still be under the rubble.
Palestinian health officials say the death toll from Israel's war in Gaza has now reached 50,000 people. This is a staggering number in Gaza. It amounts to roughly 2.5% of the territory's 2 million people. And those numbers appear likely only to go higher. Israel resumed the war last week with a surprise wave of strikes that abruptly ended a 2-month ceasefire. The Palestinians say hundreds of people have died in the past week alone. Israel says it's targeting Hamas militants and installations, and one of those killed on Sunday was a well-known Hamas leader. But hospital officials say that scores of women and children are also among the dead. Israel, for the time being, shows no signs of slowing down. In addition to the airstrikes, it's pressing ahead with ground incursions across Gaza. These operations have been accompanied by new orders for people to evacuate. In many cases, these are people who only recently returned to the rubble of their former homes during the ceasefire. Israel also says it has formed a new administration to help Gaza Palestinians leave the territory. That is part of President Donald Trump's controversial plan to empty the territory of its Palestinian population and have the U.S. take ownership. The renewal of the war has prompted mass demonstrations in Israel. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets in recent days, and among their concerns is that this renewed fighting could threaten the safety of hostages still in Gaza. The Israeli government says that military pressure is needed to bring home the hostages, but the protesters, along with many of the hostage families, want the ceasefire restored. They say that time is running out for a negotiated solution to bring home the roughly 24 living hostages still in Gaza. The war has also threatened to reignite fighting across the region. On Saturday, Israel struck targets in Lebanon in response to a barrage of rocket fire. And early Sunday, the Houthi militant group in Yemen launched another long-range missile at Israel. Israel has intercepted a series of missiles, but these daily attacks have set off air raid sirens and added to a very tense atmosphere across the country.
According to Houthi-controlled media, several people were injured, including children, after alleged U.S. strikes hit Sana'a in Yemen on Sunday night. Footage from an Ansar Allah media office, the Houthis' media arm, in fact, showed a collapsed building in the rebel-held capital Sana'a with Yemen civil defense workers at the scene. On Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump wrote on his Truth Social website that Yemen's Houthi rebels will be completely annihilated. The Houthi rebels, meanwhile, have attacked over 100 merchant vessels with missiles and drones, sinking 2 and killing 4 sailors. This is from November 2023 until January 2025, when a ceasefire, in fact, began in Gaza. Protesters clashed with police during a protest outside Istanbul's City Hall Sunday night over the arrest of the city's mayor, a key rival to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The demonstrators were seen with flares as, in fact, police attempted to disperse them with pepper spray. And earlier in the day, a court formally arrested Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu and ordered him, in fact, jailed him pending the outcome of a trial on corruption charges. Now, his detention Wednesday morning sparked the largest wave of street demonstrations in Turkey in more than a decade, with large crowds gathering outside City Hall for the 5th straight night in a row. It has also deepened concerns over democracy and the rule of law in the country. His imprisonment is widely regarded as a political move, in fact, to remove a major contender from the next presidential race, currently scheduled for 2028. Meanwhile, government officials reject the accusations and insist that Turkey's courts operate independently. A 24-year-old Indian woman and a 56-year-old father were shot dead at a departmental store in America's Virginia, where they had been working, in fact. The shooting took place on Thursday, shortly after the store in Accomack County opened. Police have arrested George Frazier Devon Wharton, 44 years old, for the double murder. Now, according to reports, the accused reached the store early Thursday morning to buy liquor and asked why the store was shut at night. He then opened fire at the father-daughter duo. While Pradeep Patel died on the spot, his daughter Urmi succumbed to her injuries at the hospital. More from the US now, where more than 25 million people across 10 states are under red flag warnings for the threat of wildfires. That's correct. Much of the fire threat stretches across the central US, but parts of the southeast are also, in fact, under an elevated risk, according to authorities. 3 major wildfires that broke out in one North Carolina county, still recovering from Hurricane Helene, have exploded to burn more than 3,000 acres combined. Now, this as South Carolina's governor has declared an emergency in response to a growing wildfire in the Blue Ridge Mountains area of the state. Meanwhile, South Korea's constitutional court has ruled to strike down the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and restore his powers, marking the latest twist in the country's political turmoil after his impeachment as acting president more than 2 months ago. Now, Han took over as acting leader from President Yoon Suk-yeol, who was himself impeached over his short-lived declaration of martial law last year. Listen in.
대한민국이 합리화, 상식의 시대로 나아갈 수 있도록 오로지 나라와 국민 전체를 바라보며 제가 들어야 할 모든 목소리를 듣겠습니다. 대한민국이 지금의 위기 국면을 헤치고 다시 한번 위와 앞을 향해 도약할 수 있도록 여야의 초당적 협조를 간곡히 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.
US Vice President J.D. Vance's wife, Usha Vance, will travel to Greenland this week. Now, this comes as President Donald Trump clings to the idea of a US annexation of the strategic semi-autonomous Danish territory. The delegation will return to the US on the 29th of March. The White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and the Energy Secretary Chris Wright will also travel to Greenland, visiting a US military base in Greenland, a US official said. Now, Trump has made US annexation of Greenland a major talking point since taking office for a second time on the 20th of January earlier this year. And in fact, he's also said Greenland will become part of the US one way or the other. Pope Francis has appeared at his window of a hospital in Rome and offered a blessing for the first time since being admitted on the 14th of February. The 88-year-old pontiff was discharged minutes later, and doctors say he will need at least 2 months of rest at the Vatican. During the past 5 weeks, the Pope presented 2 very critical episodes where his life was in danger. One of the doctors treating the Pope said. Former US Republican Mia Love of Utah, a daughter of Haitian immigrants who became the first black Republican woman elected to Congress, died Sunday. She was 49 years old. Now, Love's family posted news of her death on Love's X account. She had been undergoing treatment for brain cancer, and her daughter said earlier this month that Love, the former lawmaker, was no longer responding to treatment. She had been receiving immunotherapy as a part of clinical trial at Duke University's Brain Tumor Center. Love entered politics in 2003 after winning a seat on the city council in Saratoga Springs. It's a growing community about 30 miles or 48 kilometers south of Salt Lake City in Utah. She later became the city's mayor. As time we slip into a short break, I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching the World Report on NDTV. China sought to reassure foreign corporate chiefs of the country's business potential when Vice Premier He Feng met with the heads of Apple, Pfizer, MasterCard, Cargill, and others on Sunday. A Commerce Ministry statement, in fact, also said that Li Feng also met with pharmaceutical firm Eli Lilly, medical device company Medtronic, and specialty glassmaker Corning. Now, Beijing is in fact keen to woo foreign investment amid heightened geopolitical tensions. This as policymakers try to boost domestic consumption in a slowing economy to offset the impact of Donald Trump's US tariffs.
Have we used the deep sea? The deep sea, of course.
US President Donald Trump awarded Boeing the contracts to build the US Air Force's most sophisticated fighter jet yet, handling the company a much-needed win and even boosting its shares. In fact, the next-gen air dominance program will replace Lockheed Martin's F-22 Raptor with a crewed aircraft built to enter combat alongside drones. Protests at Tesla dealerships across the US continued over the weekend, drawing hundreds of demonstrators calling for billionaire Elon Musk's ouster from the federal government, in fact. Now, Musk has been tasked by the Trump administration with cutting the country's federal funding and its workforce. In Boston, some 200 protesters held a peaceful demonstration on Saturday, even breaking out into song outside the Tesla showroom at the Prudential Center on Boylston Street. But attacks on property carrying the logo of Musk's electronic car company are cropping up across the US and overseas even. Several more violent incidents have included Cybertrucks being set on fire in Seattle and shots fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Johnson & Johnson has laid out plans to raise US investments by 25% to more than $55 billion over the next 4 years as a threat of drug import duties by the Trump administration compels companies to expand their manufacturing operations domestically. Now, the pharmaceutical giant said on Friday it planned to build 4 new plants as part of its investment, one of which would be set up in Wilson, North Carolina, where it officially broke ground earlier in the day. Now, J&J did not disclose where it plans to build the other plants. Meanwhile, the 25% increase is compared to the company's investments in the past 4 years. At least 2 investors said most of these investments were already planned by the company. And oil prices slipped again on Monday as investors assessed the outlook for ceasefire talks aimed at ending, in fact, the Russia-Ukraine war, which could very possibly lead to an increase in Russian oil to global markets. Brent crude futures were down 25 cents, or 0.4%, at $71.91 a barrel. Meanwhile, US West Texas Intermediate crude fell 20 cents, or 0.3%, to $68.08. And the dollar drifted just below a 3-week high versus major peers on Monday as traders cautiously awaited clarity on US President Donald Trump's next round of tariffs, or the Tariff 2.0 round. The euro rose slightly following 3 straight sessions of declines, while the yen edged lower against the greenback, pressured by a rise in US Treasury yields. Tiger Woods has confirmed that he is in fact in a relationship with Donald Trump's former daughter-in-law, Vanessa Trump. Now, Woods announced the news on Sunday. "Love is in the air and life is better with you by my side. We look forward to our journey through life together," Woods wrote on X to his 6.4 million followers. "At this time, we would appreciate privacy for all those close to our hearts." Vanessa was married to Donald Trump Jr. between 2005 and 2018. They have 5 children together, including 17-year-old Kai, who's set to play golf at the University of Miami in 2026. Kai also attends the same school as Woods' children, Sam and Charlie. In fact, Kai and Charlie competed at the same invitational tournament earlier this week. But that's all we have for you today. Take care and have a wonderful Monday.